Greetings, everybody, and it's wonderful to have you guys here on this platform so we can be able to chat and talk and exchange ideas. Not only exchange ideas, but also for those people that are looking at us and listening from home, listening from wherever they're listening from, on their device, on their computer, on their TV, on wherever it is. And they're saying, why is this group of guys seated around this table? What are they talking about? And so that when they walk away, in the very first few minutes of them watching what we're doing here, they know what we're talking about. And we have had some previous sit-downs where we talked about a number of issues that affect the behind-the-scenes crew. And we want to carry on from where we left, try and stitch those things together. And also today we are privileged to have some of our precious people in the audience. And so it's always an honor to have people come together and just partake of what we're doing. So by way of introduction, my name is Herman Chimsoro. I am a father of 3 and a husband of 1. I have 3 children, right? 2 boys. The firstborn is 33 years old. My second-born is about to turn 31. My third-born is my daughter. She is 28. All passionate children. My wife's name is Anna. We've been married for 36 years old. Yeah, my wife, 36 years. My wife and I have been best friends for 43 years. We met in high school at Makumbi. So for me to be able to do what I do is because of those people that I've mentioned. They allow me to be able to do what I do. I have some very expensive hobbies. And for me to be able to do those things, because my wife allows me to do those, and my kids allow me to do all those things. So I'm privileged and honored that my kids have taken up some of those passions, like what Mono was saying, when you have like a generational profession and your kids take up that interest. And so as a worker, I work as a pastor, and I work as a musician, I work as a front of house engineer, and one of my marketplace evangelism jobs is I work as an aircraft engineer or aircraft technician. I've been an aircraft technician for 43 years. So I work on different types of aircrafts and everything. So to my right, I am going to introduce, and then I will let him speak for himself, Anesu Ebenezer Maxwell. So go ahead. He's a young man I've known for many, many, many years. His dad and I are friends, tight friends. And it's an honor to be here. And also his father is in the audience as well. So, Anesu, go ahead, man, and introduce yourself.
Thank you. My first name is Ebenezer Anesu Maxwell. I'm a pastor's son, and I got into sound and music through church, and it's such an honor to be here because this is where we used to come through with Daddy to see equipment. I remember getting into your studio and seeing Pro Tools for the first time, seeing what a proper studio looks like. So it always used to be a place where we would learn and we would be inspired. So back to my side, I am qualified Pro Tools engineer. My main field is mixing and mastering. I've done a lot of front of house and monitors throughout my career. I've done artists like Nasty C, I've done Tyler, I've done Mafiki Zolo, I've done Tellerman. So my journey in the industry was I went to SA to study sound in 2015, and after that I got an internship at Universal Music where I was doing publishing work. So that was just the admin work where we were entering splits of artists on records for your royalties from your SAMRO, from your SAMPRAs, all those collection societies. So that was my day job. But because my heart was always in the technical stuff, in be it like studio work or live sound, I would then after hours hang around the live set and work with artists and try to plug myself. So I started off rolling cables, setting up the gear and all of that. And then after a couple of times doing it, artists started speaking to me and noticing me, and they were like, "Oh, I think we would like to try you out. Let's see if we can try you out on a gig." And I'm like, "Yes, let's go." So I would start traveling with various artists across SA, and that's how I got to work for Nasty C for like I think the past 7 years. Being on the road with him both locally and internationally. So we've traveled to countries like Rwanda, Nigeria, Ghana, Tanzania. So I've basically been to a lot of places. So obviously, as you grow up and you're in the industry, live music is a lot of traveling and it's a lot of change.
Yeah.
And I wanted to settle down. So I pivoted to studio work, and I was like, I need to now just concentrate more on studio stuff because you are more grounded, you are more central. Yeah. So I started pushing the studio work, and I started recording. Tyler, I got fortunate to work with her, and we won the Grammy in 2023.
Wonderful.
So I'm officially a Grammy-winning sound engineer, which is amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I've been following your progress.
Thank you. Yeah. And I've also worked with the likes of Manana. He does R&B. He's actually in the country. I think he's got a performance somewhere tomorrow. He's won a Sama, so I'm also a Sama winning producer and sound engineer. And I did a mix and master for Killer T, Kanandanyura, and I think it's nominated for Song of the Year on the Namas. So hopefully, if that wins, I'll be a Nama winner.
we pray and hope that comes out.
So we'll see what happens. So but no pressure. Yeah. But that's a little bit of my journey, and
if you don't mind me indulging you, didn't you do some things in Germany or with the Will I Am or something? Talk about.
So when we were doing Talas Music, there was a lot of traveling, a lot of camps during COVID. There were a lot of restrictions. We were meant to do camps in the US, but Dubai was open. So we've collaborated with the likes of Will I Am, Tricky Stewart, who is Beyonce's main producer. So I've also learned from them, and they've helped me shape the engineer that I am, because they've opened up their trade secrets that I use my day-to-day workflow. And with Nasty C, we did the German MTV Awards in 2022 in Dusseldorf, and that was amazing, seeing how they work that side, the efficiency, how they set up, how they strike, how they change over bands in like 6 minutes. Right. Wow. And it was really mind-blowing. I remember after that show, it really boosted my confidence, because we flew from Germany. I flew back to Zim, and I did the Nasty C Rick Ross show in 2022. And I was more confident because I was like, I just watched people do crazy changeovers in 6 minutes. So
and just last week we were talking about changeovers, and those happen because you've got preparation that has taken place behind the scenes. 100%. Well before people walk in. Those changes are not possible if nobody has prepared for them. So I appreciate that. And Thomas, please tell us more about yourself, and I know people want to hear more from you.
I'm a man of few words. I'm more of like an introvert, but I'm trying to come out because I'm a behind the scenes person.
Is your wife taking all your words now?
But I'm Thomas, I'm a TGT. We run a company with my brothers. It's a family-run thing called Naledi Productions. I'm a father of 2. My daughter's name is Naledi. So we named the company after my daughter. So my daughter is 17. My son is 13. And my wife, Monica, she supports me a lot in what we do, because what we do is not easy. Sometimes we do late hours. We're hardly at home sometimes, But she supports me a lot, and I'm grateful for that. So we do a lot of projects in Zim. We started off, we were groomed in the church, and then that's where we grew out of. And I think we've done most of the bigger projects in Zimbabwe when it comes to visual live productions. And we've had the privilege of working with some big artists like UB40 when they came, or Burna Boy, Namas. We've done a lot of Nama things to just to raise the bar.
You done the Legends Night too?
Legends Night as well. A lot of other things, I'm sure.
Recently, when I came from the US, I came to one of your shows, but I was sitting upstairs in the HICC. The Anot. Did you guys do that?
Anot,
Anot. Tell us more about that.
Anot. Anot is it's a yearly thing run by Janet Manua. It's a very interesting project that allows us to express ourselves more artistically and visually. And I'm grateful for having worked with Janet, because she really tries to push the bar up when it comes to her visuals, and she's got a very organized team.
Yeah.
We can always talk about how they do things, how they work with us, but
It's that excellency that people see in public.
Yes.
That comes from the hard work that you guys put in behind the scenes when everybody is asleep and everybody is at home. And when everybody leaves the show, you're still there to make sure everything is packed well for the next event.
Exactly.
You don't just throw things into the bag. We are packing for the next event.
the next thing, yeah.
So those are some of the things we want to tap into, and we're able to hear from you guys what actually goes on behind the scenes, what actually goes on, how much time you get, talk about everything so that people can know what actually goes on. And those, because the reason why I'm saying this is because there are other people who want to come in and get involved and learn and walk in your footsteps and take after you. They want to know how you guys do it. They want to know, what about the commitment? Someone came to me before I go to Simba. Someone came to me and said, how do I become a sound engineer? And I want to run a sound engineer. I said, first thing is, if you don't win your wife to your side, forget about it. Don't do it. Because if she doesn't understand it, or she doesn't, she is the first person, for me, the audience, my first audience to win. And she says, you go ahead and do it. You buy, because I'm not going to buy amplifiers, line array systems, and sneak them into the house.
Right.
Recording equipment.
There's no back door.
There's no back door. It's the front door.
Yep.
You know what I'm trying to say? So you do all that excellent video, right? I'm just going to pivot on that.
Okay.
You do all that excellent video. For that excellent video to come out, there's expensive cameras.
Yep.
If someone is going to buy just the camera body for $14,000, and it comes out. And people, how did you do this video? And I want to take my phone and shoot the same quality video. It's not going to come out.
Work like that, yeah.
But for that to happen is because you're working with, there's a teamwork that's going on between you and your wife and your family and your brothers. And so talk to us more about that.
Yeah, I'm just grateful right now of this table right now, because some of the results that we've had in the years, it's also a result of the other facets, like the lighting stuff, the audio stuff. So I'm happy that he's here as well.
So this table right now is an interesting table.
Yes,
it's an interesting table.
Yeah.
Simba, go ahead, talk to us, man.
I don't know where to start from. Simbarashe Bapiro, that's my name.
Pastor Simbarashe Bapiro.
Yes.
I was going to get to that. Popularly known as Pastor Simba. I'm sure if you shout out Pastor Simba in the industry, one or two people are bound to know me. I actually started off very early in the journey of music production, just being involved in this technical space and making things happen. But I'd say the turn of events was during my high school days. I was at Churchill Boys High School, and we were actually the pioneers of the jazz band at Churchill. And in most of these jazz festivals, our time then, it used to be Churchill and Prince Edward, and then all the other guys. I remember writing my O-levels in June, and I had to be at the Jazz Festival on a Friday and Saturday, and I had first exams on Monday. And my father was, it's fine, this is your passion, you do it. But my journey then turned from there because it was quite frustrating. I'm a drummer. So you are the drummer, and all you get when you are at a production is there are two front monitors. That's all. And you guys got to get the gig going. But I'm a drummer. I can barely hear what's going on. And so out of that frustration, I just said, what?
I'm getting excited listening to what you're saying. I'm going to let you continue, but there's some things that you just mentioned that just blow out of the window stereotypes that people put on people in the church and pastors. You're a pastor.
Right.
You're a technical person. You're a drummer. And so many people, when they talk to us, I'm a pastor, right? They'll say, but you're a pastor, you should just be preaching. And I was like, no, I'm not just preaching. I preach with everything that I do. I preach when I'm working on aircrafts. I preach when I'm recording people. Front of house. I preach when I am, mixing. I preach when I'm playing my guitar. All those are means of ministry. But at the same time, when we do these things, we are supposed to be the people who do things to the highest levels of excellency. We are the people who are supposed to be doing things without making excuses and compromises.
Exactly.
So carry on.
Wow,
So
wow,
you're just really just getting me
Wow,
excited about
wow,
this. Yeah.
wow, wow.
Yeah.
That's an interesting dimension right
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And I've always tried actually to be an example
Yeah.
to the young people
Yeah.
that would look at me and say, you know, it's difficult to be in this industry, and
Yeah.
you're not a druggie, you're not some form of junkie.
Yeah.
So people will be like, you're a pastor, and
Yeah.
it seems you are making it
Yeah.
without being all
All
of
those
these
things, yeah.
negative
Yeah.
things. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we have to be
Yeah.
the salt of
The earth.
the earth, right?
Yeah. He says nobody lights a lamp and puts it under a bushel.
Right.
You put a light on, you put it up on top. So whatever position we have up there,
Right.
we're being an example. Whether we like it or not, people are watching.
Exactly.
So they watch when we speak. They watch us when we react to things. They watch us when we respond to things. I say react and respond. Those two things are different because we are put under situations where we have to either react or respond. Because when we are doing events, it's a high pressure point. People think sometimes it's only the musician that has stage fright.
Right?
There's a lot of things that go on.
Yeah.
And can tell us the name of your production house,
Yeah.
the company that you
So yeah, the production house grew from that frustration of being a drummer,
Yeah.
and you can't hear yourself. You're just going through the music because you know the music, but you're not enjoying what's happening on stage. And so from there, I was like, I want to be a sound engineer. That's how it started for me, and that's how the company started. So I run Sound Reinforcement. It's into audiovisual productions. I'm also co-owner of another production house, which is Epic Sets. And all of this kind of grew from frustrations and wanting to make our industry better, because I've been part of a lot of international productions. Now I'm full into productions because I can speak sound,
Yes.
I can speak the language of lighting, I can speak
Sound is a language.
video. We are always up in arms with this guy, you
Yeah.
know. He'd be
Yeah.
like, Mfundis, you know, you didn't give me proper light. Please, may I have proper light so that I film this? I'm like, no, we're working on it,
Yes,
you know.
sir. Yes,
So
sir.
yeah, it's been an interesting journey. So
That's what-
from that,
Yeah.
I've just grown into productions.
That's
So
what good.
besides what we do as a company,
Yeah.
I also consult for different people. So we put together the show. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you need this for your lighting, you need this for your sound, you need this for your video. We basically spec everything. I also run a TV channel. It's called ABJ TV for our church.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, being able to speak all these languages has made things quite easy.
That's good. You know, one of our episodes that we did was called Managing Failure and Hardships.
Right.
The importance of those frustrations.
Right.
The importance of those setbacks. Because we always sometimes focus on the negative side of them, but we talk about how many things have been born out of that frustration.
Right.
Just before I go to Mbaki and come back to you, frustrations, how they played an important role in what we're doing right now. I recorded an album in 1993 when one of the studios then, you know, here in Zimbabwe, 1993, September 1993. Yeah, after I recorded, I kept going back to the studio to get mixing, and they only got to mixing in October of the next year. So I said, in that moment, I said, I'm going to have my own studio. Because this is not going to happen again. Because sometimes I get a song right in the middle of the night and I want to write, I want to record, I want to track so I can go back to bed. Because as long as it's in here and I don't record it, I'm going to lose it.
Right.
You know, so if I miss the moment of inspiration, the next time I just come back to try and reproduce it, it just becomes information.
Right.
And that's it, it's lost. And then next time you hear somebody else playing the song that sounds like what you heard in your inspiration, but you didn't do that. So that's how the studio was born. Out of that frustration, I said, and then I started going, I said, I'm going to learn and I'm going to, you know, get myself and work with other people that were, you know, submitting myself to the likes of Botho Nyamondera up to now. So 30 years of relationship out of bugging him and saying, teach me. So those frustrations, if you are having any frustrations out there, don't lose your frustrations without learning anything from them. Let something come out of that. You know, Hey,
Right.
go ahead.
So, in conclusion of my introduction, like you mentioned, family is important. Family is important.
Thank you.
I would get home and, I'm walking on foot, and the wife would say, okay, so where's the car? like, hey, I sold it. I just needed to buy this piece of gear, and she'll be like, it's okay, it's okay. We're fine. That's how extreme I was. It's a bit better now, but I know it was a tough journey for her. But she stood by me, and I am where I am today because of that.
Yeah.
Family is really
that's what
important.
that is what it is about.
Yeah.
Without family, there's nothing for me. I'm not interested.
Yeah. So the last part for me that really pushes me to push the bar, especially in Zimbabwe, of our productions was when I was in Germany, and I visited DNB. They make speakers, very good speakers. So their factory, the actual room where they put the wood together and they put the drivers inside, is not very big.
Yeah.
But the research and development, the marketing, it's like a 3-story building, And I asked, okay, so why do you have, your factory is actually this small, but then, all the brains are in this 3-story building. And the answer was, there's only so much you can do with wood, but for you to be able to do certain things with that wood and the drivers, you've got to have the brains putting things together.
Thomas, what did we talk about last week, Mbaki? Your script writing, what is it? People come to you because they're asking you to put it together. That's where it happens, before you translate it.
So I then just fell in love with productions and just saying, you know what, it doesn't matter what gear you have or what, my job is to put things together. And get that production going the right way.
That's wonderful.
So
Thank
that's
you so
me in a
much.
nutshell.
We're going to hear more from you today. Okay. And to my left, Mbaki, a brain to pick from. Very eloquent also. And not just last time I was watching the episode from last time, every sentence was packed. So I would rewind back and what did he say? So I'm learning while he's talking and everything. So Mbaki, introduce yourself and tell us more about you.
All right. Thank you so much, Pastor.
Yeah.
But before I start my introduction, I think much of my success in the industry is actually credited to him.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I'll get to that part in a bit. Basically, I'm also a pastor's kid. Right, and I had the passion for playing instruments. I play a lot, right? Bass, guitar, drum, saxophone, violin. The only thing I don't play is women. All right, yeah.
They are not instruments.
Yeah, exactly.
True, yes. And then from there, sometimes my favorite instrument is the bass, right? And I remember back in the day playing bass, and I feel like, it was suppressed, and the mix wasn't just coming out, being African and black, the thump is what drives, adrenaline and stuff like that. You can't have no bass when you're black, bass is for the thing. And stuff like that. So that's how I accidentally got introduced to the mixing board, right? And then thereafter, blah, 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 learning and everything. And then I went to Botswana. When I was in Botswana, I quickly reached the climax of my career. First of all, in studio work, right? I recorded everybody that I wanted to record, right? From the V's, the Francos, the Slicers, the Alabama Slicer, which became popular in Zimbabwe. I think it's 2011. That brought it here. Was actually my concept to fuse Sungura bass lines and their house kwasa, and it blew up a lot. Yeah, and then in terms of live sound, I got exposed to a lot of international and regional artists at Botswana Craft. I was a resident engineer there. That's where I got to work with Salif Kate and the like, And I'll never forget the attention to detail that man has. I remember we had an HK Cohedra, I think it was the Icon. It was still point source, the 3 stakes, And then we did sound check we set up early from about 8 to 11. Then we take a break, come back at 2 or 3 for sound check. As soon as we finished setup, I was like, let me go chill, Then I received a call, please come back. And then we started working on percussion only. the drum, the congas, and everything. You know, this one, they look the same, sound the same, but it makes them kind of make them different. You know, that that attention to detail, even the panning, creation of the stereo field, and all those things, right? And I still remember doing a show for Lyra. Robin, the husband, didn't come at that time, and then Lyra, I remember Lyra sitting on stage with the microphone. I remember
Where is that?
in Botswana,
Oh, okay.
in
There was a
Botswana,
Leo
Botswana
show,
Craft.
Race course, I don't
Oh, yeah,
know. I
yeah.
attended to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was quite soft, and again she said, "Okay, what's your favorite song?" I said, "I want to feel good." So she started singing with it, along with the mic, and then she said, "Can you try and make my voice sound as the music as what's sounding on the CD?"
Wow.
My guy. Yeah, well, and stuff like that. So, and then so I reached the peak of my career, but what then got to me is that you're not home. So when I came back to Zim, I said, I can't compete against Vusa. Tammy is a household name, you know, and all these things. I can't be.
Vusa was supposed to be here tonight.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So he's going to be coming. He had a few commitments. Yeah.
And me coming from Guabulawayo, in Blawayo, the industry wasn't as vibrant. I remember Joe Masego said, if I were you, I would just go and get the bus and go to Harare. That's where you fit, especially with the kind of CV that I had at that time. So when I came back here, I did a bit of survey and did a bit of work with Music Crossroads. And then I did the first workshop, which I think brought almost many of the engineers and was the foundation for lots of relationships and engineers in the country today. And I'll tell you, I'll try and summarize it. That workshop was a miracle by God. I'm a man of faith, by the way. So just in short, in just a few seconds, what happened is I had no money, I had no investment. God gave me the idea, do this and stuff like that. And what I usually do with my ideas is I quickly make a poster, right, and say coming soon, or even set a date, whether I still have the resources or not, so that everybody knows that's Mbaki's idea. That's how I operate. So if I have an idea, just speaking out, jot it down. Tomorrow you probably see a poster to own it. Even with the expo, even the what do you call this, the expo. I started publicizing it in 2016, but it only came to fruition last year. In 2019. That's when it started. So that's how I own the concept. So when I did that, many people came through. I had $0. I went and asked a friend to book, what's the place called? Trust Academy. There was Jubilee Hall. I had no money. I still remember it was in January, end of January. Went and made a reservation for the 4th to the 6th of March, 2014. And then when I got there, I had no money. And after I made the reservation, I never went back to them. And then the day before, so the venue still wasn't paid. And then around about 3-4, there was a guy who was in Chirez who called me. "Hi, Mbaki, is there still space for the workshop?" I was like, "Can I send my money?" And like, "Yes, we can." And then I went and made the payment. And when I got there was a person who had actually booked the Monday and the Tuesday, skip Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and booked Saturday. Right? And then when I did that, the following day, that's when people started paying. Then I went and then paid off for the venue. Now there were no chairs.
Wow.
And we had to go to the storeroom. I still have the pictures if you see them online. Some of them had no back and stuff like that. And the workshop was a great success. Pastor Babiro was a facilitator. I remember we're having cable problems. He was still staying by 7th. He said, find a car and go and get cables from, and stuff like that. But all the facilitators got paid, right? And I think I remember I made a profit of $23.
That's profit.
Everything, yes.
It's not a loss.
That was a foundation. I remember Linton was there, and now he's one of the most renowned. Munyama Kaza, before he quit banking, he came there. He made relations. That's when I think met Pastor Simba and quite a lot of people. So that was a huge foundation even for the academy today, right? And then fast forward, I started the academy and the like. And then I have the vision.
What's the name of the academy?
The name of the academy is called Audio Academy. Wonderful. So I wanted to focus mainly on audio. Right, and it's what I focus on. But then I realized nowadays you can't run a production and there is no, and you are not linked, you're in isolation.
Yeah.
You need to be able to know lighting, you need to understand staging and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there were some things that I wasn't really good at. For example, Pastor Bapiro also assisted me. He became a facilitator when I started
Yeah.
the academy. He used to come and teach cabling and running and use, and then sell and help the students get an engineer's toolkit as a subsidized price, which means it's the soldering gun, the playback cable,
Yeah.
SHL, headphones, and quite a few things and stuff like that. And then after that, I then said, let me have a concept to see how these things as a test for the
Yeah.
students to see. We started
Yeah.
the Audio Academy Music and Arts Festival. Pastor Simba gave me venue, lighting,
Wow.
and many of the things at
Thank you.
at almost no
Yeah.
price. And he just said it's just for logistics and food for the crew.
Yeah.
And it's actually online. That was the best lighting I've ever had
That's
within the
wonderful.
thing.
That's wonderful.
Even when we're doing post-production for it, I think it was nicely captured.
Wow.
Right, and all. That's why I'm saying much of my success
That's
and
wonderful.
point of presence really lies
Yeah.
with him.
Yeah.
Right. So come back to fast forward to today. Right. I am a front of house engineer. That's my favorite. I love front of house. Right, and I do monitoring. I'm
Yeah.
very good at it. But what I don't like about monitoring is you basically have more than 20 mixes to take care of, and the attention to detail at that.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't.
It's
you don't
high
have-
high
yeah,
pressure.
It's high pressure,
Yeah.
Dr. Dar.
Yeah.
And then
It's
I-
all different mixes.
yeah,
running to
all different
places.
mixes,
Yeah.
one board, right? And then what I then do now is I now work with Zimpapers TV network. I ventured also into broadcasting,
That's nice.
right? For a specific reason, which I won't mention now.
Yeah.
Right, and now because of all the experience that I had, and I also do a bit of consulting, special and structural acoustics,
Yeah.
and now that has made me a wholesome person who understands everything.
Yeah.
The only thing that I don't fully quite understand is lighting, as yet. But for key lights, the basic thing and
Yeah.
stuff like that, studio lighting,
Yeah.
I got that because of broadcasting.
Yeah.
And the like. So I am a father of two,
Yeah, wonderful.
right? I have a wife, one,
Yes.
right?
De- definition is important.
Definition is
in the-
important, yes, right. And she has grown to understand what the industry is
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people don't understand. For example, maybe with all of you, maybe even Pastor Simba, sometimes you'll be on the mixing desk or whatever, and your phone is ringing, you can't hear it.
Yeah.
And then probably the wife is trying to call, and they're like, "Where is he?"
Yeah.
And they say, "No, I was busy." And say, "You can't even hear here." So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
thing, that understanding really is.
Yeah.
But she's grown to understand that, and I really thank God for her life,
Yeah.
because it's through grace
Yeah.
that she has actually matured to the understanding of what the industry really is.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, lastly but not least, I really feel intimidated when your godfather is here. What will I speak thereof? So I think
We'll keep him under control. So yeah, guys, today, you know, what I want to do is cover a number of items to bring some definition to things, because it's very important to clarify and make things very clear, because vagueness is the lubricant for misunderstandings. Someone says, I want to have an event. I want to have a function. They'll call it conference. They'll call it any, you know, revival, or they'll call it, you know, an album launch. To us, it doesn't really matter what you call it.
Yeah.
To us, it translates to equipment. It translates to lead time. It translates to loading, trucks,
Right.
drivers, power generation, lighting, cameras. And that's how I hear you when you say, I want to have an event.
Yep.
Right.
So you're speaking, there's an interpretation box right here between you and me. So that says, what you just told me is, you need 20 microphones, you need cables, you need DI boxes, you need processing equipment, you need, you know, drives for you, you need lighting and, you know, backline drive, you know, what for you maybe it's an interface for recording. I want to record it live. You know, everybody still says, "Oh, I want to record a live DVD and so forth." Even though DVD is still, nobody records anything from the DVD anymore. But so all those things, people throw these terms out at us, and you are in the throes of that, the pressure of that event about to come up, and so I was to talk about event duration, what it means starting on time and finishing on time. I wanted us to talk about the sound front of house. I want us to talk about the stage itself, the sound on stage, backline instruments, and then the crew. And not only that, the video, the lighting, why it is important. I know we spoke and gave some introductions in our last episode, but there are people that have not heard what we talked about. So I'm going to throw the ball out at you, like Baki said. You're mixing. You're standing right there, and you've got thousands and thousands of people. Sometimes I've had 40,000 people. Sometimes I've had 15,000 people. It depends on the event and how big it is and the venue. Sometimes I'm in an open field. Maybe it's a stadium. Maybe it's, HICC. We've been into all those venues, right? And then your phone is right here. And the artist is on stage. And right there for me, my first altar of operation right now is what's on stage in front of me. So people know, like when I'm mixing, my attention is on the artist. Right? I have a team that I work with me, and my son is right here. He's on camera. Fred is there on camera, and Farah is there on camera. So we're out there doing an event. And sometimes Fred is doing front of house, or sometimes he's doing stage. He's mixing stage. And if I am mixing front of house, I forget about everything else that's going out there. My phone is either on airplane mode or off, or I don't even touch it because I'm trying to give the maximum attention to the person in front of me. But for that to happen, there's many nights, sleepless nights. And whenever we have downtime, I tell my guys, sleep when you can, because there are times when we don't have time to sleep. We're coming from one venue, one event to the other. From track before you even offload your crossing. So one time we were in Harare, then Montare, then Beitbridge. From Beitbridge, Gwanda to Bulawayo, Bulawayo to here. From here to Livingston down to Francistown back to Bulawayo, back to here. And everybody's expecting you to be functioning at full energy. Right. But you're driving, you're running, and you're not sleeping, and all these things are happening. At the same time, the event has to be excellent. So, and there's also communication that's going on between the crew. So talk to me. Let's talk to people about this. So, what you go through. You've got an event, and they are saying, give us an excellent event. What does it mean to you for all those things to happen?
Right. I'll go first.
Yes.
I'll start in a very unique way. I remember being in 2 shows in the Harare Gardens a long time ago. I don't have the specifics anymore in terms of times. Yeah. And then I'm like, hey, what is this engineer doing? He's telling people the truth. You didn't come for sound check. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. I'm like, who does this? Who does this? And then we get out of the show. We're like, hey, chimsora haiti. And also got you quiet. People were told the truth. That's extreme. Fast forward. I've got clients seated there. We want to do a show, and then we want to do this, and then I'm like, I wish I was Chimsora. These people just need the truth. You want to have a concert, but in that concert, you want to have a table discussion. After that, you want to have a 2-people interview, a 2-person interview. And the program is like packed. And you're like, guys, what do you really want to do? So for me, what's your agenda? What do you really want to do? And as technical people, sometimes we're either not included in those meetings, but when we are included in those meetings, we really have to be open enough to tell the people that, you know what, this won't work. This is what will work. Sometimes we are looking at the money, and then you say yes, and then when the event comes, things are just all over the place because you're trying to do too much on one event. So if it's a concert, please let it be a concert. If it's a talk show, let it be a talk show. You've got to be specific, because from being specific with what you want to do, we can then define all the other areas that need to be worked on. So for me, the first thing is sit down with client, be specific. What do you want to do? And then from there, allow us to interpret what you want to do technically. So you'll be told, yeah, guys, be creative, do what you want. When you're doing it, then they'll tell you, no, put the drum set there, put the basses there. But you just asked me to be creative. So now you're giving me the space to work in, but you've asked me to be creative. You know, so allow us to give you what we suggest. It's one thing that we need to push on in Zimbabwe as well, to actually be able to draw the production and say, from what you told us, this is what we suggest you do. So quite a lot of softwares that we use, Vectorworks, Capture. Very few people actually use those in Zimbabwe. I don't use it a lot because, again, it comes down to budgets, and I think we'll talk about it at a later time.
Sure.
Because for me, I would need between 3 to 5 days to at least put together a basic diagram of what we want to do. But the client is not willing to pay for it. But from being specific...
They're not willing to pay for it, but they still want it.
They still want it,
And they expect you to bring it.
Yep, exactly. They expect the excellence, and it's like they've got money to buy a Honda Fit, but they want a Rolls Royce with that same amount. First be specific with what you want, and then the production, draw up the production, put it on paper as much as possible. Guys.
That's good. Thank you. Yes, Max.
I think he summed it up. I think that one is covered, and I've had experiences where, because of lack of proper communication, we've had like a show where the sound company was briefed that this is a graduation ceremony, and they didn't inform the sound company that there's an act coming to perform. So now the PA is configured to just have front of house speakers to face the audience and a couple of mics for the announcers and whatnot. So now when we arrive with the artist, we don't even have backline, we don't even have monitors. So I think he summed it up well to be like, I think communication is key, because then you avoid the back and forth and the fighting between client, promoter, and everyone who's involved in the organization of the event.
So you're given an event to do, right? And you know it's going to have front of house, and then they say we want to have a live recording. So how are you going to split it for you to do your recording and everything, and so that the guy who is mixing his front of house, he can still be able to mix, and you will still be able to do your thing.
100%.
And how do you manage those expectations?
Okay, so I think we all have an ideal setup where, if there's a recording, you would have a splitter on stage where you have the lines going to front of house, if you have monitor land going to monitors, and then one going to an OB van where you would capture. Because what the front of house engineer hears on stage and the monitor guy is different from someone who's in an isolated space. They can be able to hear like whether the mic positioning is off and they need to readjust. Whereas if it was just a live context, it could go by. But recording is a different thing, because now the quality that you're looking for, the mic placement, the choice of mics, stuff like even like hum, buzz is something that on a large PA you might not be able to hear. But when you isolate the individual tracks in an OB van, for example,
control environment.
Yes, you can now hear that, maybe the grounding is not right on the bass DI, for example. Then you're signaling the guys on stage to fix it, to maybe lift the ground on the DI or change the XLRs or jacks. So that would be the most ideal. So unfortunately, with productions, people are not really... We were talking about the budget, where he made a good example of you have money to pay for a Honda Fit, but you want a Rolls Royce, right? That would be the ideal situation, where you have one guy who's specifically focusing on recording, because what he does is he's listening to detail. Because the problem with recording is it's something that lasts forever, right? You put it on a platform like YouTube or DSPs like Apple Music, Spotify. So that detail that's needed, there should be extra time. There should be like even dress rehearsals to even maybe pre-capture some of the stuff, just in case something happens. Because on the day, a lot could happen. Power could cut, lines could drop. So it's actually important. And I think it's a good to record the rehearsals, the dress rehearsals, so that you have even a backup of what you're doing. So for me, that would be the ideal situation, where you have a separate dedicated recording engineer that is monitoring.
Yeah.
But I think most of the case, a monitor guy could also just get lines from his console.
Yeah.
Front of house guy can get lines from his console and
Yeah.
record. But the problem with that is when you're doing front of house, you're focusing on the PA.
Yeah.
So you hardly like put on headphones to
Yeah.
see if the tracks are proper and
Yeah.
everything is sounding right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think you can testify that there have been situations where when the guys have checked the audio
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because it was the one guy
Oh, yeah.
focusing on front of house, they realized that there were clicks and pops.
Oh, yeah.
Something was happening.
Yeah.
The levels weren't right. The gain staging wasn't good enough. And now,
I know in a situation where someone borrowed Mono's HD24, and he was the front of house engineer, and he's supposed to be doing all the recording, right? So on the HD24, on the Alesis, if you know
Yes.
it, you can arm the tracks, and then there's a little button, Ries. There's no Ries mode. So it was in Ries mode,
Right.
the whole event.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole event. The front of us was nice, and they came back after the show. It's still blinking. It's in Ries mode. It's So but,
Yeah.
So you're talking about the backup systems. Anything can happen. These are technical things.
Yeah.
You know, just like your car, you can just run over a thorn or some broken glass, and some things don't go right. I remember when we did the Michael W. Smith show in Arai Gardens, Fred and Danny Mac were on the front of house. Slinger was on the stage side together with Michael's stage engineer. So there was Fred and Danny Mac, and then there was not Brad. I can't remember his first name. So on the M7 they were using for the front of house mixing, we had the MY16AT cards and running opticals into two HD24. So they were running 48 tracks. That was recorded on the front of house side. It's not being affected by the levels you have on your faders. It's just going. And then on the stage side, there was an Apogee interface running another 48 tracks.
Oh.
So when we were putting all those files together, they realized something had been browning out on that side. So the files, they ended up pivoting it where the front of house files. And I remember when we did Israel Orton in the HICC, it was Pastor Bishop Bismarck. Jabula, 2005. That's when we recorded Alpha and Omega, that song. In the HICC, their equipment was flown to South Africa.
Yep.
So there was nothing. And they had hired our sound equipment to use.
Oh, really?
So you're there. So Jamie Brown was doing the front of house that night, and then Aaron Lindsay, the production manager, was on the keys, and then Danny Duncan was the recording engineer. And they said, "What's going on?" So at that time, Bothwell and I were mixing my album here. I said, "Bothwell, Mkoma, Bothi, Mondera, they need help." I said, "Okay, can we move our Pro Tools rig that's 2005 from my house to the studio to HICC?" So we did that. Then that's when we saw. We just said, "Give us your hard drive. So whatever we record, you can have it on your drives." That was the backup system. It was ready and standby. So he put all the audience mics, and we were running a small DGO3 and a console, and then some interface. The preamps. So we were running 18 tracks, of mic recording. So he put in all the key items like Israel's voice, guitar, Aaron's keyboards, key vocals, and then that's how Alpha and Omega was recorded that particular time. So it's talking about backup systems, and that was it. So Tommy, talk to us, man, about...
Well, yeah, I mean, the issue of planning and communication is important. I think I can remember a couple of projects that we've done that we never actually finalized because the audio didn't come right. Wow. In as much as we capture the video, we always hear stories. I don't know of why something happens to the audio.
Good stories.
Some ghosts.
Not been paid, Mari.
Either things get lost or the tracks are not clean. I think these productions meetings, they are very important for people to really separate duties. I know, when engineers are focusing on the front of house, sometimes they don't really pay attention to the tracks and where they're going. I think I've also had problems because right now we do a lot of streaming. So that broadcast audio is a bit different from the front of house. So I don't know, maybe I'll need some input from you guys. If the same engineer who's doing maybe front of house can also be the one who is engineering the audio that's going to broadcast. Because I think it's something that can be split.
Yeah.
And it's something that maybe needs to be communicated to the client when they're doing the initial
Yeah.
meetings, production meetings. Because by the time they call the video guys, maybe the engineer, the audio guys would have agreed that we can do this.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just give the video guys the left, right mix, whatever, just a stereo mix from the mixer. But it's always dirty,
Yeah.
not clean.
Yeah.
And it's a cry that I've always had for many
The
years.
split again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about the split.
So I think if we get that corrected, I think a lot of our productions, especially
Yeah.
the ones that are live and that are streaming,
Yeah.
they'll be better.
Yeah,
I was watching.
The last thing I want to hear is a camera microphone coming through the stream. It's just so. It's just, go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, I was just giving an example of Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The sound that they do and the changeovers that they do, the planning that's into it. I know that at the end of the day it's about budgets, as you say, but I don't know. I know that we've done a lot of miracles in Zimbabwe.
Right.
Working with-
We are a land of miracles, prophets and apostles.
Exactly. Working with limited budgets, but we also need to communicate to the
Right.
clients. Yeah,
Right.
some of the things that I needed,
Right.
and not just agree to any.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you do it with everyone or you just do it with us? Because you know somehow we are speaking the same language. Because I think also in Zimbabwe we need to differentiate between people that do productions and people that are looking for money to buy bread for their families. So when we come to a production, then they tell you fix this light and that light and that light. Whatever they want done, they know we can do it at the end of the day. Is that what you face every day with all these other companies, or others are just looking for money to take care of their families and not interested
I think
in
we can
production?
tell when we're working with someone who just wants money and someone who's actually passionate about the end product. Because I know that you are a perfectionist as well yourself, and you don't get offended when we try to fine tune things and to make things more perfect. Because we know at the end of the day our brands are going to grow and we're all winning. But we've been to places where things are very difficult. People are not, maybe they just resist for some strange reason to fine tune things and to perfect things. But I like our relationship that we work. We always get things done properly at the end of the day.
That's good. For this.
Productions. I'm very passionate about productions. Sometimes my administrator is actually sitting in this room with us. They kind of had to fire me from the money side of things.
You'll never be hired.
Because maybe a client is paid for 10 lights. I look at the space, I'm like, no, we need 20.
Yeah.
So I just go into the warehouse and I put in those 20. That's what passion does.
Yeah.
And I'm just a passionate person.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've actually learned from you, besides the honesty bit that I talked about, if I'm not mistaken, you were the first one to bring in a DW in
DW drum
in
kit,
Zimbabwe.
and it's only it's one of the only 5 that they made.
Right.
And so
Custom.
the person who actually delivered that to me was the DW president himself.
Okay.
So I said, you have to sign.
Right.
They only made the custom five
Right.
of those.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it was, like I said, productions. It's something that's a passion of mine. So you'd Google things, and you're wondering, will we ever have this quality?
Yeah.
And then here you have this function in the Harare Gardens in the HIC, then you see this DW drum. Like, so it's possible.
Yeah.
So that's actually some of the things that pushed me to start
Thank you.
pushing the production barriers. You're like, okay, so it can actually be done. We have a DW in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
You know how people mention cars and they say there were only 5 or 10 of these built. We have one in Zimbabwe. So you're like, so we actually have a DW drum
kit,
in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
So that's what pushed my passion for productions. And you mentioned the issue of budgets.
Yeah.
Budgets are very important, but I also feel, I hope I am not killed by my fellow production people.
Yeah.
Besides budgets, we are actually not giving people value for what we are saying we are charging them for.
Yeah.
So if you say we need the right budget, give us the venue for 1 week.
Yeah.
What are you actually going to do?
Yeah, that's all right.
What are you actually going to do in that 1 week?
Yeah.
Do you even have a production workflow
Yeah.
to say I need? So a lot of the people who say we need 7 days to set up, they actually need 2.
Yeah.
There's a show, forgetting the name. Unfortunately, there's actually one rigger that passed away. It was in South Africa.
Yeah.
And they literally had 24 hours to deliver that production, and they had to seriously put things down on a serious workflow, and then put in the required labor. By required labor, I mean the right people
Yeah,
for the
that's
right job.
bill of
So
materials.
where you needed
Yeah.
one rigger to do it over 3 days, they
Yeah.
put in 6 riggers to do it in the few hours that they had. So we are complaining that people are not putting in the money. It's a reality, but are we giving people the value
Yeah.
for what we are saying,
Yeah, what they
the
paid
budgets?
for. What
you
they
know?
paid for, yeah.
In Zimbabwe, we have, I'd probably say 5 certified riggers, which means most of these structures that we are making, our
Dangerous.
stages, our 10 by 5s, our 12,
Oh, yeah.
and it's 15 meters high, are very dangerous.
Dangerous.
Those things are not being signed off,
Yeah.
you know? And then we say budgets.
Yeah.
But are we giving people the
Yeah.
value that they're
Yeah,
supposed
if you
to?
have the right amount of wind, that canopy is a big
Yes.
trap.
You see now,
Yeah.
no wind loading has been
Yeah.
calculated,
Yeah.
nothing at all. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when you actually send in that quotation, when you say budgets,
Mm-hmm.
client budget, most of these, I've heard a lot of shows in New York,
Yeah.
Times Square to
Yeah.
be specific,
Yeah.
where majority of the money actually goes into labor.
Yeah.
Because you're hiring qualified
Qualified people.
It's like bringing a neurosurgeon
Yeah.
to a show.
Yeah.
You know, you don't pay them peanuts.
Yeah.
So when you bring in the qualified people, you
Yeah.
need to be able to pay
Yeah.
that the required
Yeah.
amount of money.
Yeah.
Safety. So yeah, you know, we need to give people value.
Yeah.
For
So while you're on that, you know, I'm going to call, say, Mbaki,
Yeah.
like you say, qualified people
Right.
to come and mix,
Right.
right? A show, and I don't give him the right equipment because the budget wasn't correct.
Yes.
The person who is going to be under fire from the musicians, from everybody, is going to be, they will always call the popular word, engineer.
Engineer.
For him to give that value, because that's important, because it's better for us to over-deliver. But for us to be able to over-deliver, we need the right equipment, we need the right amount of time. So Mbaki, talk to us about that, man, because you've been on that hotspot. Like I said last week, when the sound is good, nobody knows where you're sitting. They don't know where you are. The moment things go wrong, everybody, yeah, and they know where to find you. And then men with suits, you're surrounded. And you're trying to mix, but at the same time, you have to hear all these lectures going on at the same time. So talk to us, Mbaki.
All right. First of all, I'll just touch on a few things that some of the guys have spoken about. So the most essential thing is always preparation, and I want, maybe out of everything that we've mentioned here, is if you are a client and you search for any one of us, let this be a rule. Take notes
Yes.
in order to be noted.
Yeah.
What it simply means is that tell your service provider what you want and shush,
Yeah.
and then you listen. That formula is always worked. God is a God of order. I say that. Let the experts do what they need to do. You understand? So take notes in order for you to be noted. Right. And then secondly, in any production, there are 3 stages. There is the input, so which is basically, in our instance, the musicians, whoever are on the input transducer side, right? All right, so we really don't have control for that, right? Because they need to prepare. But where we come in key is the processing part, making sure that it's baked nicely, you understand? And I'll give you an example. What sound engineers, lighting, video guys, and the people who do production are like, we are the bakers, and let me just liken it to this. All of us love a Black Forest cake, right? But the ingredients that make up that Black Forest cake, when you take them individually, they taste horrible. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't have flour on its own. You understand? That's number one. Second, number two, all those ingredients, they come in different proportions.
Yeah.
Because you have 5 kgs of flour doesn't mean you need 5 kgs of salt. Doesn't mean you need 5 kgs of eggs.
I
Do
want
you
to try
understand?
5 kgs of salt.
Right. So we are the people responsible for how much of ingredients need to get into the cake.
Yeah.
Right? The third part is the output, which is the audience, how they receive what we have baked. You supplied the ingredients, we have baked it. Now it's up to them to have the taste.
Yeah.
So in order for this 3-stage process not to be affected, everybody play a role. Like you rightfully said, if a suit guy, don't tell Pastor Simba that I need a blue light where it's supposed to be at. You understand? That doesn't work, right? If a blue side give us the money and shush, you understand? After the thing, we'll then give you the receipts and stuff like that. So I believe everybody should know where they fall.
Yeah.
The moment they know where they fall, everything becomes flawless, right? Another thing that I need to mention, which was mentioned by Mkoma Thomas, nowadays people are not as patient as they used to be. When they go to a show and probably want to do a live DVD, sometimes if you just give them feed and it's on the video, they are fine with that, right? And I think Pastor Simba can attest. The most important thing as a sound engineer, what differentiates a sound engineer and somebody who is able to make something sound, I don't have a term for that, right, is their understanding of gain structure, which is primary. There are very few engineers, Pastor Simba can attest, who can be able to mix live and send a matrix to them and it still sounds balanced. That's a skill that doesn't come over a day or 2 or 3, you understand? I remember there is a recording that Pastor Simba played with Harare Gardens. It was, I think, funeral year Robert Mugabe, when In Total was playing my hymns. And Pastor Simba was like, how did this program? And then said, no, it's a stereo recording. I refused. You understand? Because it sounded like I think we can count them, but on one hand, people can literally do a proper live mix and at the same time do a proper stream. Same console, same gain structure, and it sounds balanced. So for your event, that's why I say take notes to be noted. When you give us what you want, what you intend, what you really want, right? Don't say because person A is a good mixing engineer, that means they can be able to handle this. Right. It's not like that. Right. It's never like that. You understand? So I'll rather you can get service provision somewhere else, but get a specific sound engineer and invest in that for that particular show. You understand? That means it would make your show very, very flawless. Is that okay? Right. And then to what you then asked me to say, yeah, the show and people do this and they need you to work magic over, deliver, blah, blah, and stuff like that. As a principle, right, if I'm speaking for the area of sound, live sound, as a principle, when an event is, for example, HACC has got a capacity of 4.5, let's say 5,000 people, you don't bring equipment that's equivalent to 5,000 people. Yeah. You need to bring equipment that caters for 10,000 people so that you have headroom, you understand, so the equipment doesn't distort, you don't blow over your amps, and so that the equipment, the speakers breathe, you understand, because if they're overdriven, it affects the coils, they overheat, sometimes your ears the speakers can play tricks on you, sometimes you feel like they're opening up, sometimes they're closing up, and you're not touching it on a mix, so it really thinks, so you need to understand how the equipment works on itself, you understand. And that's part, and these are things that prayer does not answer, by the way. You just need to be able to be specific, right, and spec right. You understand? So when I come,
the Bible says, write the vision down
and make it plain
so that he that runs with it can be able to run with it.
Can be able to run.
Things have to be plain.
Right. And also, to a certain extent, cheap is not. Cheap is never cheap.
It's very expensive.
Cheap is always expensive. You can get away with feedback from a live sound, but you can't get away with it from a live recording. You understand? So what I'd encourage the people listening to us, please respect the figures we put on the quotation, because it's for a valid reason. Like if at the end of an event there was feedback, there was this, and there was this. Sometimes I may not have the proper gear, right? But I still need to put food on my kids' table. I need to maximize profit, true. You understand? So,
You're working.
yes. So if I need to outsource something from you or from him, you've got your standard rates. I'll rather do with something so that when I get home, madam says you are away for the whole night. Bring something substantial. Do you understand? So it is from a certain point of reference, right, that when we then say we are speccing something or we are quoting a certain price, we are coming from something, you don't understand it, right? So shush. We can account for that after the what? The event is done, right? And then lastly, but not least, right? More than anything else, right? Mono says something which was very profound the previous podcast. He said that in Zimbabwe we don't have a culture of calendars. We don't have a culture of calendars, right? And things do happen sometimes because at the end of the day, it's subject to budgets, like what Pastor Simba said, right? And everybody's saying it's always subject to budget. Sometimes you'd rather stagger your payments, right? And say, Pastor Chimsoro, I've got an event in June. But Maria's then ayaslupa guy as well. As $15 kates, and then Pambok Sasa is only $45, and stuff like that. So it's that by the time we've got things to outsource, right? Because our showbiz is seasonal. I can't expect to get wireless microphones, headsets from Pastor Simba in December. It will be $100 per mic. You understand? So I'll rather start doing that when? Now. You understand? So that time frame of preparation is really, really key to subject thing. When you have a budget, you understand your vision, you've explained it, and a quote has been given, right? Stagger your payments if you don't have a funder. You understand? By the time, and if you don't want trouble with tech people, make sure that their bellies are full. That means let them do the event with their money in their pockets. When you do that, a production which was supposed to take 5 days, right, will take 2 days to prepare, right? Because if the money is in my pocket, I feel tired, I've rigged and everything and stuff like that. Let me call Vusa to come and mix. You understand? Because there's that flexibility, right? And in conclusion to what I want to state is that, right, in Zimbabwe, we've developed a very bad culture that I can do everything. That's wrong,
You're
right?
not a Superman.
You're not a Superman and stuff like that, right? I think, for example, can I make reference to myself in this particular instant? I think when you realizing from the last podcast that we mentioned, I mentioned that my strength is in front of house mixing, right? And system calibration, right? That's my strength, and I've always emphasized on that. If I need something else beyond that, if I'm not a specialty, I'll always outsource, right? And humility, what people think that humility doesn't put you out on a chair, it sets you on top of a roof. You understand? It really elevates you the moment you become humble. You understand? So don't say because I drove the truck, I need to rig it because it's my equipment. I need to do something because I need to mix, I need to multi-track. It will never think. Delegation, disaster, it's a recipe for disaster. So delegation is really, really key. And I said, I love how what we call this divine concert. Sorry to mention this divine concert work. If I ask Pastor Simba right now and say, Pastor Simba, who's responsible for power at Divas? Obed. Everybody knows that when Obed comes to a place, right, and Nabasa noting the Anatakura stage, whatever, I'm going to the MCB box, do my measurements, everything. When he's done, he goes to sleep. Right? Linton and Robert, they're responsible for lighting and screens and whatever. There's a crew responsible for structure. We know that Clyde is responsible for house. So everything is compartmentalized, right? And I think that
delegation.
Yeah, delegation. So I think if we develop a culture like that, right, like I said the other day, in the showbiz, you're only as good as your previous event. So I think that's why many people have events every day and others don't have, because they don't compartmentalize it. Anyway.
Talking about the calendar culture that you just referred to, I'll go back again, and I want to hear from you guys as well, to the Michael W. Smith event that we did in 2012. Michael communicated, the first time he communicated his intention and confirmation to come was the 24th of May. The event was on the 29th of September. 24th of May, we got all the requirements. Everything from keyboards, the CP300s, the drums, the bass, that MPEG right there, and that bass right there. That was part of
this thing.
It was all part of that communication. So we had all that time to be able to put all those things together. So there was no surprises. Everything was communicated. So we need to get to a place here in our country where for us to raise the standard of excellency, especially in the house of God, we need to stop making excuses. We need to stop this last minute, culture.
Yeah.
And also another thing is when people communicate and you say, what time are you going to come? They say, I'm coming there just now. Just now means forever when I get there.
Sure.
So that culture has to stop. The other thing that I also have experienced, and like you mentioned, I believe in speaking the point as quickly as possible and as direct as possible, because that way you don't forget it, you'll remember it. So fellow pastors, call me to come and do their event. And they're very vague. Nothing is clear about what they want to do. And I'll say, Pastor, hold on. What you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve is this. This is how we're going to do it. This is how you are able to achieve it. There's no other way. The amplifier and the sound equipment does not know it's in church. It does not know it's in a beer hall. It does not know it's in the sound system does not raise its hands.
Yes.
It's not interceding the same way you guys are. It doesn't know anything. It behaves the way it is treated by whoever. So treat it well if you want it to be well. Okay, so here I say to them. And they say, oh yeah. So this is, we want to, can we add some of our speakers into your system? And I'll say, no, I don't want, because they're junk. I'm being honest with you. It won't work well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Jesus says, we'll get some new wine and puts it into some old wineskins. It's not going to work well. And sometimes after many experiences, Fred and I and the other guys, we've done events for many places, and they will say, Mbaki mentioned this, some of the music that we listen to is not the same that everybody listens to, because we listen to the music and we can tell this frequency is right and this frequency is right. So that's what we use to kind of ring out the room and find out what the room is going to respond. We set up a system, a line array, a three-way thing and everything, and I'm trying to play that music and just listen to how it is. It's going to tell me if when I start pushing, start playing around with my EQ, this is how it's going to respond. So they said, no, we want you to use our pastor's music. Music. Right. And I said, no, it's not. They said, why? I said, because it's not mixed correctly. Yeah. I will tell you point blank. Oh, no, are you saying, you can't say that? And I said, no, touch not the anointed. And I said, no, I'm trying to help you so that when she gets on stage, she can sound right. So, so those are some of the things that we need to address. Talk to me. How do you communicate and bridge the gap between artist expectations when they got to on stage, and you're there, you're going to mix, and you know the room, and you want to go through your process of preparation, and those interruptions begin to come, and you're trying to communicate to them, no, let me do my process so that when you get on stage, do your process, you can be a happy person, you can be a happy camper. So talk to me about that.
Yes. So I think the first thing that's important is to have a relationship with the people that you're working with.
Yeah.
So we are talking about sound engineers, front of house, and monitors. I think monitor engineer is it's very key for them to be in good books and very close with the artist, because you sort of like mimicking their personality.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that mix for your bassist, your lead artist, you're sort of like trying to get into their head to be like, what would they want? So you're starting there, and then obviously if they want slight adjustments, then you can do that. So that's the first thing that is important, because if something is going wrong, if there are like any changes, you're able to communicate. That is very important to manage their expectations. So if you don't have a good relationship, there might be a problem. For example, you get to a venue, you don't have the sound disc that you're comfortable with. So now you saying, I might need an extra 20 minutes because I'm used to this type of disc, but today that disc was not available. So it would take me a bit more time to dial in the disc that we have on the show. So with that relationship, it goes a long way, because now he mentioned about the musicians being like the ingredients, the sauce, right? You need to keep them calm. You need to keep them relaxed. So if you're able to do that, even if, for example, like I know I've done shows where I'm like, look, the system wasn't calibrated properly. So please allow that the first song might not be as smooth as I'm starting to now dial in. and adjust. So if something happens like a feedback and what you're not used to, please just bear in mind, because this is the situation, this is the tech that's there, and we just have to push through this first song. I'll try my best to make sure that by the first song, I have dialed in all the settings that I need, so that by the second, third, fourth song, we are like where we usually at. So I think that would be my main point, to be like, relationships are very key. So being a monitor engineer, I think you're like a people's person first, because as much as the front of house engineer mixes for the crowd, the monitor engineer mixes for the musicians. So you being in good books with them and actually communicating to them, to be like, guys, the tech rider we sent wasn't, they didn't deliver everything. So that means I don't have the effects that you're used to. Can you perform with this?
Yeah.
Are we going to be okay? So now they're not also walking onto the stage blind and expecting that they're going to get this result. That also puts them at ease, and they're expecting anything that can happen. So that would be my first thing. Then in terms of the technical requirements, it's very important for the promoters to also actually respect the tech requirements of a band, because what it does for an engineer is it gives you a couple of steps, especially if you're working at festivals where there's like quick changeovers and there's no time for a lot of sound check. Because what you can do with some of these digital consoles, you're able to have a session that you walk around with, and then you can start there, like a template where you can be like,
You're on
okay,
a flash drive and load it up.
100%.
Yeah.
So if they honor that, if I'm like, okay, I use a Digital Quantum 338,
That's expensive.
right? Bring me my Digital Quantum 338. I know if I load my session, if the patching is according to what I specified, then even I have some of the EQs, the compressors that I've used in countless of my shows. I'm at a
Reference point.
I'm at a reference point now. I'm just tuning to the room, like what you said, like how you know the music and all of that. So I think the industry respecting that just gives everyone a starting point to be like, let's make sure that the technical requirements are met as close to as possible.
Yeah.
And also let there be communication to be like, if a tech writer is sent and I'm like, I'm using a Yamaha M7. Don't bring a PreSonus disc and not tell me.
Yeah.
And then when I get there, I'm expecting this console, and then now we are finding out on the day, which is, it happens countless times where someone makes the decision for you to be like, you asked for this item, but because we don't have this item, I'm going to give them this and not communicate.
Oh my God.
So that is...
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let me ask you guys, Tommy, you're working with in an event with multiple artists, and they're going to be one on top of the other, like one after the other. And it's going to be going for many, many, many hours. And you know the artists have got different requirements, right? Whether it's different lighting requirements for the same event. You know, you're going to be running your lights different. Or maybe they have different video expectations, different sound expectations, and so forth. What do you do? What's your situation there? You're still using the same stage, same setup that's over there. How do you manage those different expectations?
I think it's mostly to communicate. If there's a chance to communicate with those artists before they go on stage, of what our look, because our job is a bit easier on the visual side because we just work with the set that's there, and what usually makes things more complicated, I think, is the audio side of things. Because what I tend to see sometimes is some artists, like these days, we're having an issue where artists probably they need to be moving around with their own engineer.
Yeah.
Because who understands their music. Because sometimes the engineer who's there, they don't really understand the music, or the parts where there's a solo or whatever, they're supposed to push something up, but they don't understand the music at all. Yeah. And it frustrates the artists to the point that the visuals that we're taking, it's feasible, that they're annoyed and they're not happy with the sound. Because at the end of the day, the music is what carries the video. I think the music is more important than the video. I've seen that in a lot of our projects, that if the audio, the music is bad, the project will never be successful, as much as our video will be good. So I don't know how we can encourage artists, and maybe it's expensive as well to have your own engineer that you move around with. But I think it's a culture that I've seen with other international artists when they come, they've got their own person.
Yeah, and somebody here, for example, they'll say, we have our own engineer, and then he hears how your engineer is mixing, and they'll say, you know what, I'm just going to sit and
Yep.
and give you some input, and they'll just let you do your thing. And if they need to step in, and some of them are honest. The one thing I have noticed with some of the so-called international engineers, they're very honest.
Yep.
They're very upfront. They'll tell you, I'm not very familiar with that board. But I like how it sounds. I'll let you do it. I can say, okay, can you do this to my bass? Can you do this to the kick? And can you do that to the high? And so here in Zimbabwe, like what Mbaki says, we have many Mr. Know-it-alls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Or maybe an artist comes with their own engineer, and he knows that guy's music, and then he say, no, this is my mix.
Right.
Yes.
You're not
There's some
getting on this.
resistance. There's a lot of resistance. Yeah.
Yeah, what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
If you experience any of that.
I think for me, it has come down to actually low self-esteem
Yeah.
or non-confidence at all. So he really doesn't know what he's doing. So now he wants to feel important, trying to dial into a mixer that he's actually not familiar with. But before I go into my point, I had a question for Tom. What's the possibility of actually us pushing the bar to request some form of script on the part of the artist? You know you're going to have 10 artists and they know it's one stage, this is my performance, where they actually give you some form of script, or you actually discuss a script where you know, okay, this first song, they're going to start with the keyboard, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Because majority of the time you're working on the fly. You're like, oh, I think it's that guy. Okay, can we have a camera there? You guys, hats off to you. You've really tried to capture things just by seeing what's going on there. But,
Run and gun.
yeah, have you ever had those conversations?
Yeah, we've had. I think we need a template. I think that we're gonna have to give people, especially when it comes to a production manager or some sort of an event planner who works with us in the meetings and then understands the flow of the whole thing, including the stage managers, so that we just know the flow of everything and everything is scripted and everyone is communicating as well. Because there's still also an issue of communication. The comms kits that we have is usually video guys are just talking by themselves. Yeah. The engineer doesn't even know what we're talking about. But I know that internationally everyone, including the backstage, everyone is talking to.
Yeah.
We know what's happening.
Communicating.
Yeah, and they are grouped, whatever. If there's one person maybe will be knowing who to speak to at the same time, or they want to speak to a specific group, we need those systems.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think there's a gap there. There's a gap.
Right. So, Pastor, you're the one who started this. It wasn't me. I wasn't going to talk about pastors and churches. And just following up to his point where he mentioned having that pivot, that key person in between, to be able to speak the admin language and the technical language at the same time. The anointing flows from the head and it goes down.
Yeah.
So if you are the lead pastor, you are the head pastor. You've done a good job in raising up your sons and daughters. Allow them to then operate in their spaces.
We need a pastor whisperer.
So if I know what a nod stage 4 is, it doesn't mean your anointing is now less because you don't know what a nod stage 4 is. I've actually gained the confidence because I'm serving under this house. So allow me that space to be able to define what your preaching what your voice needs when you're preaching. So if I say, I want to spec a biodynamic mic for you, a Sennheiser, whatever spec, it's because I've taken the time as a son of the house to study how you preach, the dynamics in your voice, and now I want to spec this microphone for you. But people will then come and say, no, but there's an $80 mic there. Why do we need a $5,000 Accient mic for? You know, but you have no problems. You don't ask why Emirates is charging 5,000 USD for a first class ticket,
100%.
and you've put the guests on a first class ticket, but now you want them to use an $80 microphone. So I think sometimes money is not even the problem. We are just not pushing enough for people to understand that they need to put in the necessary resources and they need to give people the space to operate in. Moving to my lighting discussion around this, you hear people saying, look, I watched this, we've got our Grammy producer in here, I watched this on the Grammys, so I want my set to have this big screen at the back, and then this, all the glitz and glamour that they saw. And then now, they look at the quotation, they see the big screen, and then they see all these other things. Then they ask you, no, but what's all of this? I want the big screen. Then you try to explain to them, I'll try not to be too technical on this one, that you know what? When you are watching or when you're looking at the big screen, it's giving off light.
Yeah.
And so for you to be able to see the subject, which is your preacher or whoever it is, you need to have light that is coming from the front, which is your key light.
Yeah.
That's where the illumination is coming from. So you don't see it there. It's actually hidden somewhere up in front of house position. So you want me to quote you for what you're seeing.
Yeah.
But if I just give you the screen,
the camera is going to see the loudest thing.
He's not going to be able to shoot anything.
Yeah.
But now you're saying, remove this on your quotation, remove this. I just want the screen only.
Yeah.
People need to just leave people to be able to do what is in their space.
That's what we talked about.
So
last
someone
time.
will tell you, okay, I think 10 lights, those are a lot. Why can't you just put
There's
2
a reason
lights?
why we have those 10 lights.
So I talked about those softwares, Vectorworks, Capture, where you can actually put in or draw up a stage. We have a 10 by 8. You draw that stage, and then you put in those lights. Then you actually know, all right, this is how I'm going to light up this space. You know, there's a difference between a light source and brightness. So people will tell you, I want a bright stage. But there's a difference between brightness and the light that you're actually putting onto the stage. So to achieve that brightness that you're looking for, there's a certain amount of fixtures that I need to put in. So if you put it in that software, it's then going to tell you, okay, let's work with 12 of these Fresnel lamps, let's work with 12 of these spots. Then you actually know how your stage is going to be looking like. So it's really disheartening when you have to get into a technical discussion. You've actually done a bit of this, and you know exactly what you want, and then someone tells you, no, 12 lights are too much. Put in
let me interrupt you on that, because
know?
I want you to come back to that, and then Baki is going to come in as well, because the two of you guys in the previous episode and what you just say now just brings back to something that we talked about, where our leaders, our pastors or wherever, they're not letting the right people speak and take the lead when it comes to making certain technical decisions, because I am the man of the house, so everything falls under my authority, or in our spiritual lingo, my covering. Your covering doesn't translate to anything technical. Just get out of the way and let the technical people, the correct people, do their job, and then you'll be a happy camper as well. Go ahead, Pastor.
Exactly. And that's very critical in a lot of houses of houses of worship. Let's let people who know what they're doing do their thing. I've done a lot of consultancy in churches, and majority of what they'll call you to do, and they say, we want you to train our guys and what. You get there, then you're like, you know what, I can't do anything here. Let's go back to the drawing board. You need to employ someone. That's number one, who knows what they're doing. And then this person will then speak to the rest of the volunteers and then give them direction. You carry that. This is how you carry it. It's not just about saying, my youth, Sarai, Gatsumze, speaker. You will have no equipment at the end of the day.
You got to lift it correctly.
Exactly.
You got to transport it correctly.
So one thing pastors need to know, I think you mentioned it in passing the last episode. One of the most important things is a very good sound system, a very good visual system, lighting system. Everything audio-visual is very important. Go ye therefore, take the gospel to all the ends of the earth. How is that possible? Now we've got things like Facebook. It's a nation on its own. Over 5 billion people, somewhere there. It's a nation on its own. But it has its technical requirements.
Yes.
And when you meet those, your pastor is going to be known far and wide. But then
the platform is going to be wider.
Exactly.
More
So we are not serious about that aspect. So employ someone who actually knows what they are doing.
We talked about types of microphones, and like say Biodynamic, and I want to have this $80 microphone and so forth. So Mbaki mentioned last time that he was tasked to do some calibration and recommendations as a consultant for a building that was, the Hippodrome. Talk to us about that, because I've had so many experiences where pastors, my friends, pastors, expect us to have miracles come out of cheap material, and I'll be very graciously, honestly, directly telling them that junk is not going to take you anywhere. What do you mean? As I'm just telling you, if it's trash, it is trash. That's why we call this cold, hard facts. Trash is not going to take you to the 10th floor. It will take you to the 2nd floor. And if you want to be there and stay, keep your trash and try and make the best out of it. It's not going to work. Those ingredients, you can eat as much flour by itself as you want. It's not going to be cake. It's not going to transform. So talk to us about what you just went through about,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think before I also probably wanted to comment on what you just think, just a few additions. I was taking notes. Right. I think there is a trend which is happening in the industry, a very good one, and people are not realizing it, but it's serving the audio industry very well. For some reason, the Allen and Heath SQ series is becoming a standard, right? And it serves the industry well, in the sense that through the S-Link function, which they have, if you don't have a snake, you can use one as monitor and then transfer sound to the other one. You understand? And then another thing is that it becomes easy to share stage boxes, right? When one is in a crisis or whatever, cut expansions and everything. It really happens. I really recommend that a lot. Where I'm trying to drive at too, I feel that every show, every event always starts at rehearsal. So when I had a revelation before Michael Jackson died, the This Is It deep thing that came out, the sound engineer was actually part of the rehearsal. And Michael Jackson was even saying, no, it sounds a bit too harsh, and let's just bring it down. The kick is, you know what I'm saying, and everything. So the engineer was literally creating a mixing session during whatever. That's where technical writers come in to say, I need an M7 mixer, I need this kind of mixer, so that they carry the show file. Then they have a reference point. Do you understand? So it all starts with the rehearsal. So I think that it's a very good trend that's happening, and I feel like probably our rehearsal places where they do rehearsals, they should have at least an SQ series somewhere, so that whenever it's done, because everybody in rehearsal studios now do in-ear monitor systems, everybody now uses headphones, then you start mixing your thing from there. By the time you get there, when you put in your show file, you recall you've got somewhere, at least you've got a system to work with, but everything is at kind of 60-70%, which is way better. That makes your Masvingo incident a little bit easier. Yeah. All right. And then, so another thing that I realized is actually missing in the thing, is actually going to the question that you asked, is that there are certain major key roles that are missing in production. Mm-hmm. Pastor Simba is talking about production, but the roles that are missing in the showbiz right now, we don't have a producer for concerts who is well known. We don't have a director for concerts who is well known. For example, all of us are service providers. We are technical people, but we need people to coordinate that. Let's have a producer, Anotozikana Kana tine event yema concerts. It's Anu, so he's called. He knows how to get things done and people. Then you need to get the director of the event. Then he will direct the show, everything. That means they'll start directing from rehearsals. They'll start directing from this, coming up with the scripts for the lights and everything. There's a DVD, I'm not so sure if Ivan mentioned it to you. Last year we were supposed to do a DVD in Blair for My Mamuka, right? And when we spegged, I actually put 2 or 3 trips to Chendai Koko to attend the rehearsals, and we film on a phone so that we come back here, script everything, go back, because there'll be some instances, because what people don't understand is this. Lighting, ya Pastor Simba, determines, right, camera movement. It determines loudness of sound, right? And also influences choice of sounds or music itself. So, for example, there is a song that needs grand piano and a vocalist. The lights need to be dimmed in the spotlight. The cameras need slow moving thing and stuff like that. You understand what I'm saying? So let me give this as an example. I usually say this in my workshops. If you go out there, like right now, there's a state of balance that God made.
Yeah.
Where the apana motor, which is too loud, there's no bed that's too thin, there's no wind that's too thin and stuff like that. The sound engineer is simply trying to reproduce that balance with the materials that they have.
Yeah.
You understand? Kana paka nyorovera or pane, it's a romantic thing. There's a certain mood that's needed. You understand what I'm saying? And sound is in isolation won't achieve, you know, that kind of thing. It needs lighting, it needs this. And do you know who comes out with that? It's the director.
Yep.
Do you understand? So I think there are roles that are missing in the show business. You understand? I think Pastor Simba, Madam Gano Pinda Paro, and
So
stuff
I
like
have
that.
out of that, I have a question that's specifically for Pastor Simba. It's point number 14 on the notes that I sent you guys. Talked about lighting. Right. Do you ever get people communicate to you about your event, the theme of the event, what they're trying to achieve, the mood? Because you know what's going to happen, especially the two of you guys. Whatever you set, the mood that you set with the lighting, that's what he's going to capture. That's what's going to be remembered. That's going to be the fingerprint of that. So do people communicate to you the theme, the mood they're trying to?
They don't. Cold hard fact.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
I actually, most of the discussions that we then talk about those things, you actually request that meeting, then you ask, okay, what's the name of your event? Because when you ask them, what's your theme? They actually don't know how to define the theme. So you'll be like, okay, what is it called? Then they'll tell you it's the cross. Yeah. Then you'll be like, oh, okay, the cross. We can work with themes like these, and then they'll be lightening up. They'll be like, oh, okay, yes, okay. Can we do this? Can we do that? So majority of them don't actually even know how to define the theme of the whole thing, and that's a discussion that is very, very critical. And now, like what Mbaki mentioned, I only recall one show in Zimbabwe of the 10 years, I think, or slightly less, that I've done lights in Zimbabwe, where I've time-coded a show. And majority of the lights that I've done were for recordings. Yeah. But I don't actually know the songs. Yeah. I'm picking things up as we go. So because I'm musical, it slightly makes things better. Yeah. But throughout the show, you are always missing things because you just don't know what's going on. You ask for a script, okay, how is your music going? You only get those things on the actual day. Yeah. But it's critical for us to actually, as technical people, be involved in the rehearsal stages, because people now use stems. So the music side is kind of organized. Yeah. So from that music, I'm actually supposed to be running lights, time-coded from that music. So when the MD starts playing, that's actually my cue to start changing all the cues on my console. Yeah. So I hardly do a lot of programming. I work a lot on the Grand MA platforms, .2 to be precise. Sure. I've shifted from Avolites. It's just a choice. Nothing wrong with Avolites, but MA just does it for me. One of the reasons I moved to that platform is because I can bask a lot. Basking simply meaning I'm just sensing where things are going, and then I'm mixing as I go, but which is not supposed to be the case. Right. So the time code that I mentioned was actually a theater, and it was for Falcon College. Yeah. That's the one time I've used time code. They play the music, and the music is just changing the cues that I've actually created. Yeah. So if we record the first song and then we say, no, they've made a mistake, let's start again. Yeah. I actually can't repeat what I did on the first song because I didn't make the cues beforehand. So it becomes a different thing altogether.
I'm going to ask you guys to come back to the event, to the recording, because there's a lot of things that I would like to hear, because that is a world on its own. And we want to hear that. We want to hear more of that, and so that we can, the reason why we're doing this, so that we can help to contribute, raise the level of excellency in all our productions. Yes, no matter what we call our events, because we want them to be excellent. So this is why we are here, because we want to make sure that they're excellent. So we definitely need to hear more from you, Pastor Simba, and we can bring it back to the table.
Sure.
Because the time that we have today, I want to just ask Ebenezer to kind of sum up for the people. What do they take away? What do they go home with today from what we kind of discussed? And then we'll call it a wrap for the day, and then also come back and contribute some more. Okay. It's going to be to you to close.
Thank you. I would say thank you for this discussion and sharing the ideas. I would say let's be people who are forth planning. Like, let's get into the habit of planning. Let's get in the habit of communication. Let's get in the habit of trusting our professionals, because it's good for us. It benefits us, and let's try as much as possible to even know the vision before we even involve our service providers, before we even involve consultants and stuff, because that alone just helps remove the guesswork, the uncertainty. So I think, that's what I would say from today.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. And I want to thank you so much, guys, for coming. And I really appreciate you guys giving that contribution.